They said love would save me. They lied. I never thought I'd find myself in bed with my boyfriend's father. But then again, I never thought I'd catch my boyfriend screwing my own sister either. Some nights destroy you. Some nights remake you. This is the story of how I went from invisible art student to the woman who brought an empire to its knees, all because I walked through the wrong door at the worst possible moment. If you want to see how far scandal can take you, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. The champagne tower stood 7 glasses high, bubbling with golden liquid that probably cost more than my rent. I watched a waiter in a crisp white jacket refill the top tier, the overflow cascading down in a perfectly choreographed waterfall. Everything at this party was perfect. Everything except me. I tugged at the hem of my dress, a sleek black number I'd found at a consignment shop, and altered myself. It fit well enough, hugged my curves in the right places, but standing in Daniel's family mansion, surrounded by women dripping in designer labels and jewelry that could fund a small country, I felt like a child playing dress-up. Aria. I turned to see Madison, one of Daniel's college friends, gliding toward me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her red dress probably had a waiting list. Her diamonds were definitely real. "You look nice," she said, her gaze sweeping over me with the precision of an art appraiser. "Is that vintage?" Translation: "Is that old?" "Something like that," I said, forcing a smile. She leaned in, her perfume, something French and expensive, overwhelming. "Where's Daniel? I haven't seen him all night." "Mingling," I lied. Truth was, I hadn't seen him either, not for the past 40 minutes. He'd kissed my cheek when I arrived, introduced me to exactly 3 people, then vanished into the crowd of beautiful strangers. "Well, you should find him. It's his birthday, after all." Madison's smile sharpened. "Make sure he remembers you're here." She drifted away, leaving me with the distinct impression that I'd just been dismissed. I grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter and downed half of it in one gulp. The bubbles burned my throat. Around me, the party pulsed with energy, laughter that sounded rehearsed, conversations about summer homes and gallery openings and charity galas. Daniel's world. A world he'd promised I could belong to. 6 months. We'd been together 6 months, and I still felt like a guest who'd overstayed her welcome. My phone buzzed. I pulled it from my clutch, hoping for a text from Daniel. Instead, it was my sister. "Elena. Where are you? Thought you were at Dan's party." Me. "I am. Why?" Elena. "Just wondering. Have fun." I frowned at the screen. Elena never texted me during her Friday nights. She was always out with her own friends, doing whatever it was that social media managers did when they weren't curating perfect Instagram feeds. The double kiss was weird too. We weren't that kind of sisters. I typed back a quick response and pocketed my phone, scanning the crowd again for Daniel. The mansion was massive, 3 floors of marble and mahogany, with rooms that seemed to multiply the longer you wandered. I'd been here twice before, both times for family dinners that felt more like business negotiations. Daniel's mother had asked about my prospects. His father hadn't shown up at all. The music shifted, something slower, jazzier. Couples paired off, swaying in the center of the ballroom. I watched them, feeling the familiar ache of being on the outside looking in. "You seem lost." I jumped, nearly spilling my champagne. The man beside me had appeared out of nowhere, older, maybe late 40s, with dark hair graying at the temples, and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. His suit was understated but clearly expensive, tailored to fit his broad shoulders and lean frame. He wasn't smiling. "I'm fine," I said automatically. That's what people say when they're not fine. He studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "You're Daniel's girlfriend." It wasn't a question. "Aria," I said, extending my hand. "And you are?" "Someone who knows better than to come to these things." He took my hand briefly, his grip firm and warm. "But apparently I don't learn." He didn't offer his name, just stood there, drink in hand, watching the party with the same detachment I felt. "You're not enjoying yourself," I observed. "Are you?" "Fair point." "I'm trying," I admitted. "It's a lot." "It always is." He took a sip of his whiskey, his gaze still fixed on the crowd. "Daniel's good at throwing parties, less good at showing up to them." My stomach tightened. You know him well? Well enough. His eyes finally met mine, and there was something unsettling in them. Not unkind, but sharp, assessing. You don't belong here, I bristled. Excuse me? It's not an insult, just an observation. He gestured vaguely at the room. These people? They're performing. You're not. Well, maybe I just need more practice. Or maybe you need to find somewhere you don't have to practice at all. Before I could respond, someone called his name from across the room. He gave me a slight nod, almost apologetic, and walked away, disappearing into the crowd like smoke. I stood there, rattled. Who the hell was that? My phone buzzed again. Another text from Elena. Elena. Seriously, where are you? Need to talk. Me. At the party. What's wrong? Elena. Nothing. Call me later. Something cold settled in my chest. Elena didn't do cryptic. She did blunt, sometimes brutal honesty. This felt wrong. I drained my champagne and set the glass on a nearby table, my decision made. I needed to find Daniel. Now. The mansion was a labyrinth. I climbed the grand staircase to the second floor, dodging drunk couples making out in corners and groups of people doing lines off marble sinks in the bathrooms. The music faded as I moved deeper into the house, past rooms filled with abstract art and furniture that looked too expensive to sit on. Daniel's room was at the end of the east wing. He told me that once, laughing about how his parents had given him the isolation ward when he was a teenager because he threw too many parties. I'd never actually been inside it. The hallway was quieter here, the sounds of the party muffled by thick walls and closed doors. My heels clicked against the hardwood floor, too loud in the silence. I was almost to his door when I heard it. Laughter, low and intimate. Then a voice I'd know anywhere. Come on, we don't have much time. Daniel. My hand froze on the doorknob. Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to walk away, to not look, to preserve whatever dignity I had left. But my body moved on autopilot, pushing the door open just enough to see inside. The room was dim, lit only by the city lights filtering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. But it was enough. Enough to see Daniel on the bed, shirtless, his hands tangled in long dark hair. Enough to see the woman beneath him arch her back, her face tilted toward the light. Enough to recognize my sister. The world tilted. My vision tunneled. I heard a sound, high and broken, and realized it was coming from me. They both froze. Daniel's head whipped around, his eyes going wide. Arya, no. The word came out strangled. I stumbled backward, my heel catching on the edge of the hallway runner. No, no, no. Elena sat up, pulling the sheet around herself. Her makeup was smudged, her lips swollen. She looked at me, and for just a second, one horrible second, I saw guilt flash across her face before it hardened into something else. Defiance, maybe. Or worse, pity. Arya, wait. Daniel scrambled off the bed, reaching for his pants. I didn't wait. I ran. My heels pounded against the floor as I tore through the hallway, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind me, I heard Daniel shouting my name, but I didn't stop, couldn't stop. The tears came hot and fast, blurring everything into abstract shapes and colors. I took a wrong turn, then another. The mansion swallowed me, its endless corridors all looking the same. I pushed through a door, expecting a stairwell, and instead found myself in another hallway, narrower, darker, with walls lined in what looked like family portraits. A hand grabbed my arm. You can't be here. I spun around, yanking free. It was a security guard, his face stern. I'm leaving, I choked out. I'm trying to find the exit. This is the private wing, family only. His grip tightened. I need you to come with me. I said I'm leaving, my voice cracked. I could hear Daniel getting closer, calling my name. The thought of facing him, of having him see me like this, was unbearable. I wrenched away from the guard and ran again, pushing through the nearest door and slamming it behind me. My hands fumbled with the lock, finally clicking it into place just as Daniel's voice echoed from the other side. Arya, please, let me explain. I pressed my back against the door, sliding down until I hit the floor. My whole body shook. The room I'd trapped myself in was some kind of study. Dark wood paneling, leather furniture, shelves packed with books. A fireplace sat cold and empty against one wall. There's nothing to explain, I said, my voice barely a whisper. It's not what you think. I saw you, Daniel. I saw both of you. Silence. Then, it just happened. We didn't mean... A laugh bubbled up from somewhere deep and broken inside me. It just happened? You just accidentally fucked my sister? Don't make this ugly. It is ugly, I was screaming now, past caring who heard. You made it ugly! More silence. Then footsteps, retreating. He left. Of course he left. I sat there in the dark, my fancy dress twisted around my legs, mascara tracking down my cheeks, and let myself fall apart. Great, heaving sobs that seemed to crack something fundamental inside me. How long had it been going on? How many times had Elena texted me, her messages peppered with little hearts and kisses, while she was sleeping with my boyfriend? How stupid had I been? The door on the opposite side of the room opened. I looked up, ready to tell Daniel to go to hell, but the words died in my throat. It was the man from downstairs, the one who'd said I didn't belong. He stopped when he saw me, his expression shifting from surprise to something I couldn't quite read. We stared at each other for a long moment, me crumpled on his floor like discarded trash, him perfectly composed in the doorway. Sorry, I managed, wiping at my face with the back of my hand. I didn't... I'll go. You're bleeding. I looked down. My knee was scraped raw, blood seeping through my torn stockings. I must have fallen when I ran. I hadn't even noticed. He crossed the room, opening a cabinet and returning with a first aid kit. He knelt in front of me, actually knelt, and began cleaning the wound with a gentleness that made my throat tighten. I'm fine, I said, though clearly I wasn't. You keep saying that. His hands were steady, efficient. Doesn't make it true. Fresh tears spilled over. I couldn't stop them. I caught him. My boyfriend. With my sister. He paused for just a second, then continued wrapping gauze around my knee. Daniel's an idiot. You really do know him well. I'm his father. The world stopped. I stared at him, really looked at him for the first time. The sharp jawline, the dark eyes, the bearing of someone used to being in control. Victor Hale, Daniel's father, the venture capitalist who'd built an empire from nothing, the man Daniel both worshipped and resented in equal measure. Oh my God. I tried to stand, but his hand on my shoulder kept me still. Don't. You'll reopen it. I should go. I shouldn't be here. Where exactly are you planning to go? Back to the party? To my son who just betrayed you? The words hit like a slap. I flinched. I'm sorry, he said quietly. That was cruel. It was true. He finished with my knee and sat back on his heels, studying me with that same intense gaze. You want to know what else is true? You walked into that party tonight hoping to feel like you mattered, like you were worth seeing, and instead you discovered that the people you trusted most don't deserve you. I let out a shaky breath. How do you know what I hoped for? Because I've spent 30 years watching people at parties like this. I know the difference between someone who belongs and someone who's trying to belong. You were trying. They were never going to let you. That's bleak. That's reality. He stood, extending a hand to help me up. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I took his hand. His grip was strong, pulling me to my feet with an ease that suggested he was stronger than his lean frame implied. We stood close, closer than strangers should, and I caught the scent of his cologne, something clean and understated. I don't know, I admitted. Go home. Cry. Block both their numbers. Burn this dress. That's a start. Something almost like amusement flickered in his eyes. The dress is terrible, by the way. I choked out a laugh that was half sob. Wow, thank you. You altered it yourself. I can see the seams. He tilted his head. You're an art student? How did you... Daniel mentioned you once, said you were talented but impractical. His mouth tightened. He's wrong about the second part. Probably the first too. You don't know that. I know his taste. It's inherited from his mother. He moved to a bar cart in the corner, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. Which is to say expensive, but boring. He handed me a glass. I took it, my fingers brushing his. Why are you being nice to me? I asked. I'm not nice. Then why are you here? In this room, with me, instead of at your son's party? He took a long drink, his eyes never leaving mine. Because I hate parties. Because I came up here to escape. And because you look like someone who needed to not be alone right now. The honesty of it caught me off guard. I drank, the whiskey burning a path down my throat. I'm Arya, I said, though he clearly already knew. Victor. We stood in silence, drinking, the sounds of the party distant and irrelevant. I should have felt awkward. I should have made an excuse and left. But something about him, his directness, his refusal to offer empty comfort, made me want to stay. Can I ask you something? I said finally. You can ask. I may not answer. Why did you say I don't belong here, downstairs, when we first met? He considered the question, swirling his whiskey. Because you're real. These people? He gestured vaguely toward the door. They're performing versions of themselves they think they should be. Wearing the right clothes, saying the right things, wanting the right people. You're not performing. You're just yourself. And that makes you dangerous to them. I'm not dangerous to anyone. No? He moved closer, and I could feel the heat of him, the weight of his attention. You walked into a room full of people who've spent their lives learning how to hide, and you wore your heart on your sleeve. That's terrifying, because it reminds them of what they've lost. My breath caught. And what have you lost? His smile was sad. Everything that matters. Which is why I recognize it in you. You're about to lose something too. Your innocence, maybe. Your trust. The belief that people are fundamentally good. That's dark. That's life. He finished his drink and set the glass down. But here's what they don't tell you. Losing those things doesn't have to break you. Sometimes it sets you free. I wanted to argue, to insist that I wouldn't let this change me, but standing there, my knee throbbing, my heart shattered, I knew he was right. I would never be the same girl who walked into this party. I should go, I said, though I didn't move. You should. Neither of us moved. The moment stretched, taut and fragile. His eyes dropped to my lips, then back up. I saw something flash in them. Want, maybe, or warning, both. Victor, don't. His voice was rough. Don't say whatever you're about to say. Why not? Because you're hurt and angry and looking for a way to make this night hurt less. And He stepped back, breaking the spell. I'm not that person. Shame flooded through me. He was right. I was looking for something, anything, to make the pain stop. And for a second, standing in his study with his eyes on me, I thought maybe he could. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be sorry. Be smart. He moved to the door, opening it. Go home, Arya. Forget tonight. Forget my son. Forget me. I walked past him, my head down, feeling foolish and small. But as I reached the threshold, his hand caught my wrist. For what it's worth, he said quietly, you deserve better than him. Better than all of them. Then he let go, and I walked out into the hallway, alone. The cab ride home was a blur. I sat in the back seat, watching the city lights smear past, my phone buzzing constantly with texts I didn't read. By the time I climbed the 3 flights to my apartment, I'd made a decision. No more crying, no more hoping, no more trying to fit into worlds that didn't want me. I unlocked my door and stepped inside, kicking off my heels and leaving them where they fell. My apartment was tiny, a studio in a building that had seen better decades, but it was mine. The walls were covered in my paintings, my sketches, my collages. Proof that I existed, that I created, that I mattered. I grabbed my phone and blocked Daniel's number, then Elena's, then every single person from that party who'd ever made me feel less than. My reflection caught in the mirror by the door, smudged makeup, ruined dress, bandaged knee. I looked wrecked. I looked real. Victor's words echoed in my head. Sometimes it sets you free. I peeled off the dress and threw it in the trash. Then I showered until the water ran cold, scrubbing away the night, the betrayal, the humiliation. When I got out, I wrapped myself in my oldest, softest robe and collapsed onto my bed. Sleep didn't come. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment. Daniel's face when I walked in, Elena's guilt, The security guard. Victor. Victor. I kept coming back to him. The way he'd looked at me, like he could see straight through all my defenses. The way he'd knelt on the floor to bandage my knee. The moment when he'd stepped back, when he'd refused to be my escape. He was right to refuse. I knew that. But lying there in the dark, I couldn't stop thinking about what might have happened if he hadn't. My phone lit up. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. This is Victor Hale. Daniel gave me your number a while back, some emergency contact nonsense. I'm deleting it after this. But I wanted to make sure you got home safely. I stared at the message, my heart doing something complicated. Me. I'm home. Thank you. Unknown. Good. Take care of yourself, Arya. The typing indicator appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Unknown. And for the record, the dress wasn't that terrible. I smiled despite everything. Despite the pain and the anger and the overwhelming sense that my life had just split into before and after. I saved his number. I didn't know why. Didn't want to examine it too closely. I just knew that something had shifted tonight. Something fundamental. And Victor Hale, for better or worse, was part of it. So, Monday morning came too fast. I'd spent the weekend in my apartment ignoring the world. Elena had shown up Saturday night, pounding on my door and crying about how sorry she was, how it didn't mean anything, how she never meant to hurt me. I'd sat on my couch, headphones on, painting until my hands cramped, and let her pound until she gave up. Daniel had called from different numbers, left voicemails that ranged from apologetic to angry to confused. I deleted them all without listening. My best friend Maya had come over Sunday with wine and takeout and let me rant for 3 hours straight. She'd wanted to slash Daniel's tires. I talked her down to just keying his car. We compromised on doing nothing and getting drunk instead. But Monday meant facing the world again. Monday meant university. I dressed in my usual uniform, black jeans, vintage band t-shirt, denim jacket covered in pins and patches. I pulled my dark hair into a messy bun and went light on makeup. No armor, no pretending. The campus was buzzing when I arrived. Fall semester had just started, and everyone was still riding the high of new classes and possibilities. I grabbed a coffee from the campus cafe and headed to my first class, Contemporary Art Theory. I loved art theory, loved the way it took things apart and put them back together differently, loved the arguments, the challenges, the moments when a concept clicked into place like a puzzle piece. I settled into my usual seat near the back, close enough to see the board, far enough to avoid being called on constantly. The room filled slowly, students trickling in with their overpriced textbooks and MacBooks. I recognized most of them from previous classes, though I wouldn't call any of them friends. The professor was late. Unusual for the first day. "Did Henderson retire?" someone behind me asked. "No idea. Maybe he's just stuck in traffic." The door opened. Victor Hale walked in. He moved to the front of the room, setting a leather messenger bag on the desk. He wore dark slacks and a gray sweater over a white shirt, professional but not stuffy. His hair was slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked up, scanning the room. His eyes landed on me. I watched the recognition hit him, watched his expression shift from neutral to something I couldn't read. We stared at each other across the classroom, the moment stretching impossibly long. "Good morning," he said finally, his voice carrying easily through the space. "I'm Professor Hale. Professor Henderson took a last-minute sabbatical, so I'll be teaching this course for the semester." No. This couldn't be happening. He began taking attendance, his voice steady and professional. When he got to my name, he paused for just a fraction of a second. "Arya Bennett." "Here," I managed, my voice smaller than I wanted. His eyes met mine again, and I saw a warning there. Or maybe a promise. I couldn't tell which. The class began. He launched into a discussion of postmodern theory, his knowledge deep and his delivery engaging. He challenged assumptions, asked hard questions, made the students think. Under any other circumstance, I would have been fascinated. Instead, I sat frozen, my mind reeling. Daniel's father was my professor. The man I'd broken down in front of, who'd bandaged my knee and told me I was too real for his son's world, was going to be teaching me 3 times a week for the next 4 months. I was so screwed. After class, I tried to slip out quickly, but his voice stopped me. "Miss Bennett, a word, please." The other students filed out, shooting me curious glances. When the room was empty, Victor closed the door. We stood on opposite sides of the classroom, a gulf of scarred desks and uncomfortable chairs between us. "This is," I started. "Complicated," he finished. "I know. Did you know I was a student here?" "No, Daniel mentioned you were in art school, but I assumed—" He ran a hand through his hair, disrupting it further. "It doesn't matter. What matters is how we handle this." "Handle this," I repeated. "You mean pretend we never met?" "I mean maintain appropriate boundaries. You're my student. I'm your professor. What happened Friday night? Nothing happened Friday night." "Exactly. And nothing can happen. Do you understand?" I bristled at his tone. "I'm not a child." "I'm not suggesting you are. I'm suggesting that there are rules, Arya. Rules that exist for good reasons." "Rules you're afraid of breaking?" The words came out sharper than I intended. He stared at me, and I saw his jaw tighten. "Yes," he said finally. "Rules I'm afraid of breaking, because breaking them would hurt you, and I've already watched my son do enough of that." The fight went out of me. He was right. Of course he was right. "Okay," I said quietly. "Boundaries. I get it." "Good." He moved back to his desk, putting more distance between us. "You're a talented student, from what I've seen in your file. I expect excellent work from you. Nothing more, nothing less." "Fine." I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me again. "Arya." I looked back. "I meant what I said. You deserve better." "Yeah," I said, hitching my bag higher on my shoulder. "I'm starting to figure that out." I left before he could say anything else, my heart pounding and my head spinning. This semester was going to be hell. 3 weeks passed like walking through fog. Arya went to class, took notes, turned in assignments. She painted in her studio until her eyes burned. She avoided Daniel's texts and Elena's calls. She existed, but barely. And every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m., she sat in Victor Hale's classroom and pretended her skin didn't catch fire every time he looked at her. He was a good professor, better than good. He pushed his students, demanded they think deeper, question harder. He dismantled their assumptions about art and beauty and meaning with a precision that was almost surgical. Some students hated him for it. Arya found herself hanging on every word. She told herself it was just intellectual interest, that she was learning, that the way her pulse jumped when he called on her had nothing to do with the memory of his hands bandaging her knee. She was lying to herself, and she knew it. "You're staring at him again." Arya blinked, turning to Maya, who sat beside her in the campus cafe. They'd met for lunch between classes, a routine they'd established freshman year. "I'm not staring. You've been looking at that classroom door for 5 minutes straight." Maya stabbed her salad with more force than necessary. "Please tell me you're not waiting for Hot Professor to walk by." "Don't call him that." "Everyone calls him that. Have you seen the student forum? There's literally a thread dedicated to his sweaters." Maya leaned closer. "Also, you're deflecting. What's going on with you two?" "Nothing. He's my professor." "Yeah, and he's also your ex's dad, which is weird as hell." "I'm aware." Maya studied her with the uncomfortable insight of someone who'd known her too long. "You like him." "I don't." "Arya, you have a type, and that type is apparently emotionally unavailable men who should absolutely be off limits." Maya sighed. "First Daniel, now his father. You're like a moth to a really well-dressed flame." "It's not like that." "Then what's it like?" Arya pushed her barely touched sandwich away. "He sees me, really sees me, not some version he wants me to be." "That's called basic human decency, babe. The bar's in hell." I know it's stupid. I know nothing can happen." Arya dropped her head into her hands. "But I can't stop thinking about him." "Have you talked to him? Outside of class?" "Once. Right after I found out he was my professor. He made it very clear that boundaries are non-negotiable." "Good. He's doing the right thing." "I know." "So why do you look like someone just killed your dog?" Arya laughed, the sound hollow. "Because doing the right thing sucks." Maya reached across the table, squeezing her hand. "You need to drop his class." "I can't. It's required for my degree, and it's the only section offered this semester." "Then you need to get over him. Fast." Maya's expression softened. "I'm serious, Arya. This can only end badly. Even if he wasn't your professor, even if there weren't a million ethical violations waiting to happen, he's Daniel's father. That's a level of mess even you can't paint your way out of. I'm not trying to paint my way out of anything. No, you're just sitting here mooning over a man you can't have, while your ex and your sister are probably still screwing each other senseless. The words hit like a slap. Arya pulled her hand back. That was harsh, Maya said, not apologizing. But you needed to hear it. You're better than this. Better than wasting your time on men who make your life complicated. Maybe I like complicated. No, you like feeling something. Anything. Because feeling something is better than feeling nothing. Maya stood, gathering her tray. But there's a difference between feeling alive and setting yourself on fire. Figure out which one this is before you get burned. She left, and Arya sat alone in the cafeteria, surrounded by the noise of other people's normal lives, feeling like she was drowning. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. Stop by my office after class tomorrow. We need to discuss your last paper. It was from Victor. It had to be. He'd never texted her since that first night, and she'd never deleted his number. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Me. Is something wrong with it? Unknown. We'll discuss it in person. She stared at the screen, reading and rereading the message. His office. Alone. Just the two of them. This was a terrible idea. She texted back. What time? Unknown, 3 p.m. Don't be late. The next day crawled by with excruciating slowness. Arya sat through her morning sculpture class without retaining a single word. She grabbed coffee she didn't drink and a bagel she couldn't eat. By the time contemporary art theory rolled around, her nerves were shot. Victor lectured on the commodification of art in late capitalism. He was brilliant, as always, weaving together theory and history and contemporary practice into something that made her brain light up. But she couldn't focus, not when she knew what was coming after. Class ended. Students filed out. Arya packed her bag slowly, waiting. Miss Bennett, his voice was neutral, professional. My office, 3 o'clock. I remember. His eyes met hers for just a second, and she saw something flicker there, something that matched the chaos in her chest. Then he looked away, and the moment passed. Arya killed the next hour in the library, pretending to read. At 2:55, she made her way across campus to the humanities building, her palms sweating. His office was on the 3rd floor at the end of a quiet hallway lined with old photographs of the university's history. She knocked. Come in. He sat behind his desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, a stack of papers in front of him. The office was small but well-appointed, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a leather chair, a window overlooking the quad. It smelled like old books and his cologne. Close the door, he said, without looking up. She did, her mouth dry. He set down his pen and removed his glasses, finally meeting her eyes. Your paper on Rothko. It's good. Then why did you ask me here? Because it's too good. He leaned back in his chair. You're holding back. I'm not, you are. Every argument you make is safe, supported, reasonable. He tapped the paper. But there's nothing of you in it. No risk, no real insight. Arya bristled. I answered the prompt. You did, competently. But I don't want competent from you. He stood, moving around the desk to lean against it, closer now. I want the truth. The messy, complicated truth you're afraid to put on paper. Maybe I don't have any messy truths. His laugh was sharp. We both know that's not true. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Arya forced herself to breathe. What do you want from me? She asked. I want you to stop playing it safe. His gaze held hers. In your work, in your thinking, you're capable of so much more than this. You don't know what I'm capable of. Don't I? He tilted his head. I've read every assignment you've turned in. I've watched you in class discussions. You're smart, Arya, talented, but you're afraid to show people how much. I'm not afraid. Then prove it. Rewrite the paper. Take a risk. Say something that matters, even if it scares you. She wanted to argue, to defend herself, but he was right, and they both knew it. Fine, she said. I'll rewrite it. Good. He moved back behind his desk, creating distance again. You can go. But she didn't move. Couldn't move. Why are you doing this? She asked quietly. Doing what? Pushing me. You could just give me a B and move on. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. Because wasting potential is a sin. And you're wasting yours. Is that the only reason? It needs to be. The admission hung between them, heavy and dangerous. Victor, Professor Hale, he corrected sharply. In this office, in this building, I'm Professor Hale. Do you understand? Yes. Good. Then we're done here. She turned to leave, her hand on the doorknob when his voice stopped her. Arya. She looked back. His expression was unreadable. Be careful. Of what? Of thinking there's a version of this that doesn't end badly. She left without responding, her heart in her throat. The following week, Arya threw herself into rewriting her paper. She ripped apart every safe argument, every careful observation. She wrote about Rothko's color fields and how they felt like drowning, like being unmade, like standing at the edge of something too big to name. She wrote about art as emotional violence, as necessary destruction. She wrote until her hands cramped and her eyes burned, and she couldn't tell anymore if she was writing about Rothko or herself. When she turned it in, Victor read it in front of her. She watched his expression shift as he read, something like recognition flickering across his face. Better, he said finally. Much better. Just better? You want me to tell you it's perfect? He looked up at her. It's not, but it's honest, and honest is worth more than perfect. Heat flooded her cheeks. Thank you. Don't thank me. You did the work. He handed the paper back. Now do it again. For every assignment. Stop hiding. She wanted to kiss him. The thought came unbidden and terrifying, and she forced it down, shoved it into the same mental box where she kept all her other dangerous impulses. I should go, she said. You should. Neither of them moved. The moment stretched, taut and fragile, until a knock at the door shattered it. Come in, Victor called, his voice controlled. A student poked her head in. Professor Hale? Sorry to interrupt. I have a question about the reading. Of course, Ms. Bennett was just leaving. Arya fled. October bled into November. The semester ground on. Daniel stopped texting. Elena stopped calling. Maya watched Arya with increasing concern, but stopped lecturing her about Victor. And Arya fell deeper into whatever this was, this magnetic pull toward a man she couldn't have, this addiction to the way he saw her, challenged her, made her want to be better. It was Maya who told her about the gallery opening. You should submit, she said, sliding a flyer across the table during lunch. It's a student showcase, fully curated, big deal. Arya scanned the flyer. The opening was in December, right before winter break. Selected works would be displayed at one of the city's premier contemporary galleries. I don't know. Don't give me that. You're one of the best painters in this school, and you know it. Maya's expression was fierce. Submit something. Show them what you can do. What if I don't get in? What if you do? Arya took the flyer home. She spent the weekend in her studio, staring at canvases in various stages of completion. Nothing felt right. Nothing felt true. Finally, at 2 a.m. on Sunday, she started something new. She painted Victor. Not literally. She wasn't that reckless. But she painted the way he made her feel. Dark colors bleeding into light. Sharp angles softening into curves. Chaos organized into something almost beautiful. Control losing to want. She called it restraint. It was dangerous and obvious and probably a terrible idea. She submitted it anyway. 3 weeks later, she got the acceptance email. Her piece had been selected. She'd be part of the showcase. She screamed in her apartment, jumping up and down like a kid. Then she texted Maya, who responded with approximately 17 excited emojis. Then she sat on her couch, staring at her phone, debating. Finally, she texted Victor, me. I got into the gallery showcase. She regretted it immediately. It was unprofessional, inappropriate. She should have just told him in class, casually, like it didn't matter. Her phone buzzed. Victor. Congratulations, you deserve it. Me. Thank you for pushing me. Victor. You pushed yourself. I just pointed you in the right direction. She stared at the screen, her thumbs hovering over the keyboard. Me. Will you come? To the opening? The typing indicator appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Victor. I don't think that's a good idea. Me. Why not? Other professors will be there. Victor. Other professors don't have our history. Me. We don't have a history. Nothing happened, remember? Another long pause. Victor. Exactly. And I'd like to keep it that way. Disappointment crashed through her, sharp and unexpected. Me. Understood. See you in class. She threw her phone across the couch and grabbed a bottle of wine from her fridge. She'd just settled in for a night of feeling sorry for herself when her phone buzzed again. Victor. What's the piece called? She debated lying, decided against it. Me. Restraint. Victor. I'm sure it's beautiful. Me. It's honest. Victor. That's what I said. She fell asleep on her couch that night, her phone clutched in her hand, dreaming of dark eyes and dangerous possibilities. The gallery opening was chaos. Students rushed around hanging last-minute pieces, adjusting lighting, arguing about placement. Aria's painting had been given a prominent wall, a good sign, her advisor said. People would notice it. She wore a simple black dress, nothing fancy, pulled her hair back, kept her makeup minimal. She wanted people to look at her work, not her. The gallery filled quickly. Students, professors, parents, art collectors. Aria stood by her painting, fielding questions, accepting compliments, trying not to throw up from nerves. It's powerful, a woman in an expensive suit said, studying the canvas. What inspired it? Life, Aria said vaguely. Wanting things you can't have. The woman smiled. I think we can all relate to that. She moved on, and Aria exhaled. Well, well, look who's fancy now. She turned. Daniel stood there, hands in his pockets, that familiar smirk on his face. He looked good. He always looked good. Expensive haircut, designer jacket, the kind of casual confidence that came from never being told no. What are you doing here? She asked flatly. It's a public event. I'm public. He gestured at her painting. This is intense. That's the point. Is it about me? He actually had the audacity to look hopeful. Not everything is about you, Daniel. No, because it looks like anger, and I can think of a reason you might be angry. She laughed, the sound bitter. You think I spent months painting a masterpiece about your cheating ass? You're not that important. His expression darkened. I tried to apologize. You blocked me. Because I didn't want to hear it. Elena feels terrible. I don't care what Elena feels. Aria's voice rose. People nearby turned to look. She lowered it, leaning closer. You both made your choice. Now I'm making mine, which is to never think about either of you again. You don't mean that. I really do. He stared at her, and for a second she saw something like hurt in his eyes. Good. She hoped it burned. You know what? Daniel said quietly. You're better off. You never really fit in my world anyway. You're right. Thank God for that. He left, and Aria stood there shaking, her hands clenched into fists. You handled that well. She spun around. Victor stood a few feet away, a glass of wine in his hand. He wore a dark suit, no tie, his shirt open at the collar. He looked devastatingly handsome and completely out of place among the art students and hipster professors. You came, she said stupidly. I changed my mind. His eyes moved to her painting, studying it with an intensity that made her breath catch. This is yours. Yes. He stepped closer, examining every brushstroke, every color choice. She watched him take it in, watched understanding dawn. It's about us, he said quietly. It's about restraint, she corrected. About wanting things you can't have. Things that would destroy you if you reached for them. His jaw tightened. Aria, you should see the rest of the gallery. There's some really impressive work. I'm not interested in the rest of the gallery. Then why did you come? He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw it. The same want she felt, the same struggle. He was fighting it, same as her. But he was losing. Because I'm making bad decisions lately, he said. And apparently I can't stop. Her heart hammered. What kind of bad decisions? The kind where I show up to my students' gallery opening when I should stay far away. He took a sip of wine, his eyes never leaving hers. The kind where I can't stop thinking about you, even though I know better. Victor. Professor Hale. But his voice was rough, lacking conviction. There's no one here who cares what I call you. I care. Why? Because it makes this easier? Pretending we're just professor and student? She moved closer, emboldened by wine and weeks of pent-up frustration. We both know that's not all we are. It's all we can be. Says who? Says ethics, rules, common sense. His hand came up, almost touching her face, then dropping. Says the part of me that knows getting involved with you would be selfish and wrong and potentially career-ending. And the other part? The other part doesn't care about any of that. His voice was barely above a whisper. The other part just wants, what? Say it. You. The other part wants you. The admission hung between them, raw and dangerous. Then have me, she said. I can't. You keep saying that, but you're here. You came tonight knowing what it would do, what it would mean. She was close enough now to smell his cologne, to feel the heat of him. You're not as strong as you think you are. Neither are you. I'm not trying to be strong. I'm trying to be honest. His laugh was bitter. Honesty doesn't change the facts. You're my student. I'm your professor. There's a power dynamic that makes any relationship between us inherently unethical. The semester ends in 3 weeks. And then what? You think we ride off into the sunset? I'm 25 years older than you. I'm your ex-boyfriend's father. This is a disaster waiting to happen. Maybe I like disasters. You don't. You're just tired of playing it safe. But I'm not the answer to that. How do you know what I need? Because I've been where you are, young and angry and looking for something to make the pain stop. His expression softened. You think I'm the solution, but I'm just another problem. Let me decide that. No. The word was final. Absolute. Arya felt something crack inside her. Fine, she said, stepping back. Thanks for coming. Enjoy the rest of the show. She walked away before he could respond, pushing through the crowd until she found the bathroom. She locked herself in a stall and let the tears come, hot and furious. She'd been stupid. So stupid. Thinking he felt what she felt, thinking there could be anything between them but lectures and office hours and professional distance. When she finally emerged, makeup fixed and composure restored, she found Maya waiting. I saw Hot Professor, Maya said. And I saw you two talking. What happened? Nothing. He made it very clear that nothing is ever going to happen. Good. It doesn't feel good. Maya pulled her into a hug. I know, babe, but he's right. You know he is. I know. But knowing didn't make it hurt less. The gallery cleared out eventually. Arya accepted congratulations from strangers, made small talk with professors, pretended everything was fine. When she finally left, it was past midnight, and the city was quiet. She walked home, heels in her hand, feeling hollowed out. Her phone buzzed. Victor. I'm sorry. She stared at the message, then deleted it without responding. 3 weeks until the semester ended. 3 weeks of sitting in his classroom pretending her heart wasn't breaking every time he looked at her. She could do this. She had to. But that night, alone in her apartment, staring at the canvas she'd painted of restraint and want and impossible things, Arya wondered if some kinds of wanting ever really stopped. The last 3 weeks of the semester crawled by like walking through cement. Arya went through the motions, turning in assignments, sitting through lectures, avoiding Victor's eyes whenever they tried to find hers across the classroom. She told herself it was better this way. Clean, professional, safe. She was lying to herself again. Finals week hit like a freight train. Arya had 3 major projects due, 2 exams, and a senior thesis proposal to submit. She lived on coffee and spite, painting until dawn and sleeping in 2-hour increments. Maya brought her food she didn't eat and lectures she didn't listen to. You look like death, Maya said, sitting cross-legged on Arya's studio floor. When's the last time you slept? Tuesday, maybe. Arya stepped back from her canvas, squinting at the brushwork. What day is it now? Thursday. You have Hale's final tomorrow. I know. Have you studied? I don't need to study. I know the material. She dipped her brush in crimson, adding another layer to what was becoming an increasingly violent piece. I've been living the material. Maya watched her work in silence for a moment. This is about him, isn't it? The painting. Everything's about something. That's not an answer. Arya set down her brush, wiping her hands on a paint-stained rag. He told me to stop playing it safe, so I'm not. By painting your feelings all over a canvas that everyone's going to see? By being honest? Isn't that what art's supposed to be? Art's supposed to be whatever you want it to be. But I'm worried you're using it as therapy instead of actually dealing with your shit. Since when are you the art police? Since you started painting nothing but rage and longing for 3 months straight. Maya stood, crossing to the canvas. I get it. He got under your skin. But the semester's almost over, Arya. You're going to have to figure out what happens next. Nothing happens next. He made that clear. Did he? Because I saw the way he looked at you at the gallery. That wasn't nothing. Arya's chest tightened. She'd tried not to think about that night, about the way Victor's voice had roughened when he'd admitted wanting her. Tried not to replay it in her head at 2 a.m. when sleep wouldn't come. It doesn't matter how he looked at me. He's not going to do anything about it. What if you're wrong? I'm not. But even as she said it, doubt crept in. Victor's final exam was essay-based, 3 hours to analyze contemporary art movements through the lens of everything they'd learned. Arya finished in 90 minutes, her hand cramping from writing, her thoughts spilling onto the page faster than she could organize them. She wrote about destruction as creation, about beauty in broken things, about the courage it took to show people your wounds. She wrote like she was bleeding. When she turned in her exam, Victor barely glanced at her, just took the blue book and added it to the pile, his expression unreadable. She waited a beat, hoping for something. Acknowledgement, a look, anything. But he'd already turned his attention to the next student. Arya left the classroom feeling hollow. The semester ended with a whimper. Students scattered for winter break, the campus emptying out until only stragglers remained. Arya stayed in the city. Her family lived 3 states away, and after Elena's betrayal, she had no desire to go home for the holidays. Maya left for her parents' place in Vermont, making Arya promise to text daily and not do anything stupid. Arya promised, fingers crossed behind her back. She spent Christmas Eve alone in her apartment, eating takeout and watching old movies. Her phone stayed silent except for a generic text from her mother and a drunk message from an old high school friend. No word from Victor. Not that she'd expected any. She fell asleep on the couch, the TV still playing, and woke to her phone ringing at 2 a.m. unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Arya. Victor's voice was rough, strained. I need your help. She sat up, suddenly wide awake. What's wrong? A pause. Background noise that sounded like traffic. I'm in trouble. Can you come get me? Where are you? He gave her an address in a part of the city she didn't know well. Not the worst neighborhood, but not great either. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Arya, his voice cracked. Thank you. She threw on jeans and a jacket, grabbed her keys and ran. Her ancient Honda coughed to life, and she drove too fast through empty streets, her mind racing. What kind of trouble? Was he hurt? In danger? Why was he calling her and not someone else? The address led to a dive bar, neon sign flickering. Victor stood outside, leaning against the brick wall. His jacket was gone, his shirt untucked and disheveled. Blood streaked his knuckles. Arya parked illegally and ran to him. What happened? Got in a fight. He tried to smile and failed. Turns out I'm not as young as I used to be. Are you drunk? Not drunk enough. He pushed off the wall and swayed. She caught his arm, steadying him. I called you because I couldn't think of anyone else who wouldn't ask questions I don't want to answer. I'm asking questions. I know. I'm counting on you being too nice to push. She looked at his face in the streetlight. One eye was swelling shut, his lips split. Whoever he'd fought, they'd gotten their hits in. Come on, she said, guiding him to her car. I'm taking you home. Can't go home, Daniel's there. Your place, then. Don't have a place. I'm staying at a hotel until I find an apartment. Arya made a decision she'd probably regret. Fine. My place. But you're explaining everything once we get there. He didn't argue, just folded himself into her passenger seat with a grunt of pain. She drove carefully, hyper-aware of his presence beside her. He smelled like whiskey and copper and something darker. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for coming. Did you really think I wouldn't?" "I was hoping you would. That's different." Her apartment looked smaller with him in it. He stood in her living room, taking in the canvases covering every wall, the paint-stained furniture, the organized chaos that was her life. "Sit," she ordered, pointing to the couch. "I'll get the first aid kit." When she returned, he'd shed his shirt. Bruises bloomed across his ribs, dark and angry. She sucked in a breath. "Who did this to you?" "Old friend, old enemy. Depends on the day." He winced as she cleaned the cut on his eyebrow. "I used to run with a different crowd, before I got my life together, before Daniel was born. Sometimes that world comes calling." "What kind of world?" His eyes met hers, and she saw something dangerous there, something he usually kept buried deep. The kind where you solve problems with your fists instead of lawyers, where money's made in ways that would make my current colleagues very uncomfortable. He caught her wrist as she dabbed antiseptic on his split lip. "I'm not a good man, Arya. I've done things I can't take back. Everyone's done things they regret." "Not like me." His grip tightened. "I've hurt people, ruined lives, built my empire on other people's suffering."
Then why are you telling me this?
"Because you should know what you're getting into if you keep looking at me the way you do." "And how do I look at you?" "Like I'm something worth saving." His laugh was bitter. "I'm not." Arya set down the cotton swab and took his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. "I'm not trying to save you. I'm just trying to understand you." "There's nothing to understand. I'm a cautionary tale with expensive suits." "Stop it." Her voice sharpened. "Stop trying to make me hate you. It's not going to work." "It should." "Well, it doesn't." She released him, sitting back. "You want me to run away? To decide you're too broken or too dangerous or too whatever? I've had enough people in my life decide I'm not worth the trouble. I'm not doing that to someone else." He stared at her, something shifting in his expression. "You're going to get hurt." "Probably, but that's my choice, not yours." "Arya, the semester's over. You're not my professor anymore." She met his gaze steadily. "So stop hiding behind ethics and rules and tell me the truth. Do you want this? Us?" The silence stretched, taut and fragile. "More than I've wanted anything in years," he said finally, "but that doesn't make it right." "I don't care about right. I care about real." She moved closer, close enough to feel his breath on her skin. "This is real. Tell me you feel it too." "You know I do." "Then stop fighting it." His hand came up, fingers tangling in her hair. "If we do this, there's no going back. People will talk, judge, your friends, your family, the university. Let them talk. It could ruin your reputation, your career. I'll build a new one." "Arya," she kissed him, just leaned in and pressed her lips to his, tasting copper and whiskey and something that felt like coming home. For a second, he froze. Then he kissed her back, hungry and desperate, like he'd been starving, and she was the first meal in months. His hands found her waist, pulling her onto his lap. She went willingly, straddling him, her fingers digging into his shoulders. The kiss deepened, teeth and tongues and breath mingling until she couldn't tell where she ended and he began. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, his forehead rested against hers. "We can't take this back," he warned. "I don't want to." "But people will get hurt. They'll get over it." He laughed, the sound rough and genuine. "You're reckless." "You're just figuring that out?" He kissed her again, softer this time, tender in a way that made her chest ache. "Stay," she whispered against his mouth. "Tonight. Just stay. I'll ruin you." "Maybe I want to be ruined." He pulled back, searching her face. Whatever he saw there must have convinced him, because he nodded. They didn't sleep. Instead, they talked, really talked, for the first time without the weight of student-teacher hanging over them. He told her about his past, the violence he'd escaped, the empire he'd built on questionable foundations. She told him about growing up invisible, always the sister who wasn't quite enough, the girlfriend who didn't fit. "Daniel never saw you," Victor said, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her arm. He saw what he wanted to see. A pretty girl who made him feel noble for dating outside his social circle. And what do you see? Someone brave, talented, real in a way that terrifies people who've forgotten how to be honest. That's a lot of pressure. You can handle it. He smiled and it transformed his face. You're stronger than you think. I don't feel strong. Strength isn't about feeling powerful. It's about choosing to keep going even when everything tells you to quit. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. You've been doing that your whole life. You just didn't realize it. Dawn broke over the city, pale light filtering through her windows. Victor looked exhausted, his bruises darkening, but something in his expression had softened. I should go, he said without moving. You should stay. Arya, I know, real world, consequences, all of that. She pressed a kiss to his jaw. But real world doesn't start until you walk out that door. So stay, just a little longer. He stayed. They fell asleep tangled together on her couch, his arms wrapped around her like he was afraid she'd disappear. When Arya woke hours later, he was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. What? She asked, voice rough with sleep. I'm trying to figure out if this is the best decision I've ever made or the worst. Can it be both? That's what scares me. Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it, squinting at the screen. A text from Maya. Maya. Please tell me you're not doing anything stupid? Arya glanced at Victor, who raised an eyebrow. Me. Define stupid. Maya. Arya. Me. I'm fine, I promise. Maya. You're a terrible liar. Call me later. Arya set the phone down, turning back to Victor. My best friend thinks I'm making bad choices. She's probably right. Definitely right. Arya sat up, stretching. Coffee? Please. She made coffee in her tiny kitchen while Victor explored her apartment, studying her paintings with an intensity that made her self-conscious. Most of them were recent, violent splashes of color, figures half-formed and breaking apart, abstracted emotions given physical form. These are incredible, he said, stopping in front of her latest piece. The one she'd been working on finals week, all rage and crimson. You've grown, just in the semester I've known you. You pushed me too. I pointed, you did the work. He moved to another painting, one she'd done before they met. Softer, safer, more controlled. This was before, he observed. Before what? Before you stopped being afraid of what people would think. He was right. Looking at her older work now, she could see the careful restraint, the way she'd held back. The new pieces were raw, messy, honest. Better. You changed me, she admitted. No, I just showed you it was okay to change yourself. They spent the day in her apartment, existing in a bubble where the outside world didn't matter. They ordered food they barely touched, talked about everything and nothing, kissed until her lips were swollen and his bruises protested. It felt stolen, temporary, perfect. As evening approached, reality began creeping back in. I have to go, Victor said, pulling on his ruined shirt. I have a meeting tomorrow morning. Investors. Will you call me? Do you want me to? Yes. He kissed her, slow and deep. Then I will. After he left, Arya stood in her apartment, which suddenly felt too empty, and tried to process what had just happened. She'd crossed a line, multiple lines, and she didn't regret any of it. Her phone rang. Elena's name flashed on the screen. Arya stared at it for a long moment, then answered. What do you want? Arya. Thank God. Elena's voice was tearful. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Please, can we talk? We're talking now. In person. Please. I need to explain. There's nothing to explain. You slept with my boyfriend. Pretty straightforward. It wasn't like that. I needed... Elena's voice broke. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please, just give me 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Arya closed her eyes, exhaustion washing over her. Fine. Tomorrow. The coffee shop on 5th Street, 10 a.m. Thank you so much. Arya hung up before Elena could say more. She had no idea why she'd agreed to meet. Curiosity, maybe. or the faint hope that her sister could offer some explanation that would make the betrayal hurt less. She doubted it. The next morning, Arya arrived at the coffee shop early, armed with caffeine and a carefully maintained wall around her emotions. Elena showed up exactly on time, looking thinner than Arya remembered, dark circles under her eyes. They sat across from each other in uncomfortable silence. "You look good," Elena said finally. "Don't." "Right, okay." Elena wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "I'm not going to make excuses. What I did was unforgivable. I knew it was wrong and I did it anyway." "Why?" "Because I was jealous." The admission came out strangled. "You've always been the talented one. The interesting one. Mom and Dad barely notice me unless I'm doing something successful. And even then, it's always Elena's doing well. But have you seen Arya's latest painting? That's not my fault." "I know. I know it's not. But when Daniel started dating you, I saw a chance to take something that was yours, to prove I could." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "It was petty and cruel, and I hate myself for it." "You should." "I broke up with him after that night. I told him I couldn't do it anymore." Arya's eyebrows rose. "Why?" "Because I saw your face. When you caught us, I saw what I'd done to you." Elena wiped at her eyes. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry and that I'm getting help, therapy, trying to figure out why I hurt people I love." Arya sipped her coffee, processing. Part of her wanted to throw the hot liquid in Elena's face, but a larger part, the part that had spent the last 3 months learning to be honest about messy emotions, just felt tired. "I can't forgive you," Arya said. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." "I understand. But I appreciate you telling me the truth." Arya set down her cup. "We're not okay, Elena. We might never be okay. But at least now I know why. That's more than I deserve." "Yeah, it is." They sat in silence for another moment, years of sisterhood reduced to this awkward coffee meeting. Finally, Elena stood. "I'll let you go. But Arya, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're doing well. You deserve it." She left, and Arya sat alone with her coffee, feeling something shift inside her. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of letting go. Her phone buzzed. Victor. Victor. "Dinner tonight. My hotel. We need to talk." Her stomach dropped. Those 4 words, "we need to talk," never meant anything good. "Me. What time?" "Victor. 7. She spent the rest of the day anxious, painting to distract herself but unable to focus. By the time 7 o'clock rolled around, she'd changed outfits 3 times and given herself a pep talk in the mirror that mostly consisted of "don't fall apart." Victor's hotel was downtown, all glass and modern architecture. She texted when she arrived, and he met her in the lobby, guiding her to the elevator without a word. His suite was on the top floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Drink?" he offered. "Just tell me what's wrong." He poured himself whiskey, downing half of it before turning to face her. "I got a call today. From the university. Someone saw us at the gallery." Arya's blood ran cold. "What does that mean?" "It means there's going to be an investigation. They want to determine if anything inappropriate happened while you were my student." "But nothing did happen." "Not technically, but we both know lines were blurred." He ran a hand through his hair. "I could lose my job, Arya. My reputation. Everything I've built. What do you want me to do?" "I want you to tell the truth, that I maintained professional boundaries, that nothing physical happened until after the semester ended." "Okay, I can do that. But there's more." He set down his glass, crossing to her. "If we continue this, if we're seen together, it's going to look bad, like we're confirming their suspicions." Her throat tightened. "Are you breaking up with me?" "I'm giving you a choice. We can walk away now, cleanly. You go back to your life, I go back to mine. No scandal, no complications. And the other option? We fight. We tell them the truth and deal with whatever consequences come." His hands framed her face. "But you need to understand what you'd be signing up for. Public scrutiny, judgment, people questioning your achievements, wondering if you only got good grades because we were involved. We weren't involved, not when it mattered. They won't care about technicalities. Arya pulled back, pacing to the window. The city sprawled below, lights twinkling like stars. She thought about Elena, about Maya's warnings, about every person who'd ever told her to play it safe. Then she thought about Victor's hands bandaging her knee, the way he pushed her to be better, the feeling of finally being seen by someone who didn't want to change her. She turned back to him. I choose you. I choose us. Whatever that means. Arya, I'm not afraid of scandal, Victor. I'm afraid of walking away from something real because it's hard. She crossed back to him, taking his hands. We'll fight. We'll tell the truth. And we'll deal with whatever comes. He pulled her close, holding her like she was the only thing keeping him standing. You're going to regret this. Maybe, but I'd regret walking away more. They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, the city glittering around them. Tomorrow would bring investigations and questions and judgment, but tonight they had this. And for now, that was enough. The university's ethics committee meeting was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon in mid-January, just as spring semester started. Arya sat in the waiting area outside the hearing room, her leg bouncing with nervous energy. Victor sat 3 chairs away, maintaining the distance the university had mandated while the investigation was ongoing. They weren't supposed to communicate, weren't supposed to be seen together. Arya had stopped caring about supposed to. The door opened. A woman in a navy suit gestured for Arya to enter. Miss Bennett, we're ready for you. The room was smaller than she'd expected. Just a long table with 5 committee members seated on one side, a single chair facing them. Arya sat, folding her hands in her lap to keep them from shaking. Thank you for coming, said the man at the center, Dr. Morrison, head of the ethics committee. We just have a few questions about your relationship with Professor Hale. We don't have a relationship. Not while he was my professor. But you do now. This from a woman to Morrison's left, her expression skeptical. Yes. When did this relationship begin? After the semester ended, December 24th specifically. Morrison made a note. And there was no romantic or sexual contact before that date? No. What about emotional intimacy, private meetings, inappropriate communications? Arya thought about Victor's office, the way he'd pushed her to be better, the texts after the gallery opening, the night she'd found him bleeding outside a bar. We had normal professor-student interactions, she said carefully. He challenged my work. I responded to that challenge. Nothing inappropriate happened. We have a witness who says they saw you and Professor Hale in what appeared to be an intimate moment at a gallery opening in early December. Her stomach dropped. We talked about my artwork. Other professors were there too. This witness described the interaction as, quote, intense and personal. They said Professor Hale looked at you in a way that suggested prior intimacy. Then your witness has an active imagination. Arya met Morrison's eyes. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. There was attraction, maybe from the first time we met, but Victor, Professor Hale, maintained strict professional boundaries. He never touched me, never said anything inappropriate, never gave me preferential treatment. If anything, he was harder on me than other students. Why? Because he knew people would be looking for exactly what you're looking for. Evidence that something was wrong. She leaned forward. He did everything right. We both did. And the fact that we started a relationship after he wasn't my professor anymore shouldn't be a crime. Ms. Bennett, you understand that the power dynamic is gone. He's not my professor now. He won't be teaching any of my classes going forward. There's no power dynamic. He's still a faculty member. You're still a student. At a university with 30,000 students, I'm majoring in studio art. He teaches theory. Our paths don't have to cross again. Arya's voice hardened. You want to punish him for something that might have happened, but it didn't. And punishing him now, when we've done everything according to your rules, just tells students that there's no point in following the rules anyway. But Morrison studied her for a long moment. You care about him. Yes. Enough to risk your reputation, your academic standing? My reputation is mine to risk, and my academic standing should be based on my work, not who I date. The committee members exchanged glances. Finally, Morrison nodded. Thank you, Ms. Bennett. We'll be in touch with our decision. Arya left on shaking legs. Victor was gone from the waiting area, probably already in his own hearing. She walked out of the building and kept walking until she hit the campus quad, where she collapsed onto a bench and let herself breathe. Her phone buzzed. Maya. Maya. How'd it go? Me. Like being interrogated by corporate lawyers. Maya. That bad? Me. Worse. But I told the truth. Maya. That's all you can do. Meet me at Luigi's, you need carbs and wine. Me. Make it tequila, and you have a deal. She was on her second margarita when Victor texted. Victor, they're recommending censure, formal reprimand in my file. No suspension. Relief flooded through her, followed quickly by anger. Me. That's bullshit. You didn't do anything wrong. Victor. I let myself get close to a student. That was wrong, even if we didn't act on it. Me. You treated me like a person. That's not wrong. Victor. The university disagrees. Me. The university can go to hell. Victor. Arya. Me. I'm serious. They're punishing you for having feelings, for being human. Victor. They're punishing me for poor judgment, and they're right. She stared at the message, something cold settling in her chest. Me. Do you regret it? Us? The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Victor. No, but I wish it hadn't cost me my credibility. Me. We can fight this. Victor. We could, but I won't. I'll take the censure and move on. Me. That's it? You're just giving up? Victor. I'm picking my battles. This one isn't worth winning. She wanted to throw her phone across the restaurant. Instead, she set it down very carefully and downed the rest of her margarita. Trouble in paradise? Maya asked. He's taking a reprimand, not fighting it. Maybe that's smart. Fighting it would just drag things out. Or maybe it's him deciding I'm not worth the trouble. Maya reached across the table, squeezing her hand. That's not what's happening. He's protecting you. Fighting the university would make this bigger, messier. It would put you under more scrutiny. I don't need protecting. Everyone needs protecting sometimes. Arya pulled her hand back, signaling for another drink. I'm so tired of people making decisions for me. First Daniel, thinking he could cheat, and I'd just accept it. Then Elena, deciding my boyfriend was fair game. Now Victor, deciding what battles are worth fighting without even asking me. Have you told him that? I'm telling you. Yeah, but I'm not the one who needs to hear it. The waiter brought another margarita. Arya drank it too fast, the tequila burning her throat. I should go home, she said, though she didn't move. You should talk to him. Actually talk. Not just text. What if he decides I'm too much trouble? Then he's an idiot who doesn't deserve you. Maya's expression softened. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's crazy about you and terrified of screwing it up. That makes two of us. She paid her tab and walked back to her apartment in the cold January air, trying to sort through the tangle of emotions in her chest. By the time she got home, she'd made a decision. She texted Victor. Can I come over? Victor. Now? Me. Yes. Victor. Room 2847. She grabbed her keys and drove to his hotel, her heart pounding. When she knocked on his door, he answered immediately, still in his clothes from the hearing, dark slacks, white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked exhausted. We need to talk, she said, pushing past him into the room. I gathered that. She turned to face him, arms crossed. You don't get to make unilateral decisions about us, about what battles to fight or what's worth the trouble. If this is going to work, I need to be part of those decisions. I was trying to protect you. I didn't ask you to protect me. I asked you to be with me. There's a difference. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. You don't understand the position you're in. If I fight this, the university will dig deeper. They'll question every grade I gave you, every interaction we had. They'll try to prove I showed favoritism. Did you? No, but that won't stop them from trying. So let them try. I can defend my work. It's not about whether you can defend it. It's about the shadow it casts on everything you accomplish. He crossed to her, his voice gentler. I've lived through scandal before, Arya. I know what it does. I won't let it destroy your future. My future is my choice. Then choose wisely. She stared at him, seeing the fear beneath his careful control. He wasn't just protecting her, he was protecting himself from the guilt of potentially ruining her. I choose you, she said quietly. Scandal and all. Messy and complicated and probably inadvisable. I choose you. Why? Because you see me. Because you push me to be better. Because when I'm with you, I don't feel like I have to perform or pretend or be anything other than exactly who I am. She moved closer. And because I'm falling in love with you, and that's terrifying enough without you trying to make decisions for both of us. He went very still. You're in love with me. I'm falling. There's a difference. Not much of one. Do you want me to take it back? No. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. I want you to mean it. I mean it. He kissed her then, deep and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his hands framed her face. I'm falling too, he admitted. Have been since you broke down in my study looking like the world had ended. Romantic. I'm not good at romance. You're doing fine. They moved to the bed, shedding clothes between kisses, all the careful distance they'd maintained dissolving into heat and need. His hands mapped her body like he was learning a new language, and she let herself get lost in the feeling of being wanted this completely. Afterward, they lay tangled together, the city lights filtering through the windows. The censure goes into effect next week, Victor said, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her shoulder. I'll be on probation for a year. One more incident, and I'm done. Then we'll be careful. Careful wasn't exactly what we were just doing. She smiled against his chest. Careful in public, in private, all bets are off. I can live with that. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, and for the first time in weeks, Arya slept without nightmares. The next morning brought reality crashing back. Arya's phone exploded with messages. The campus gossip mill had gotten hold of the investigation results, and suddenly everyone had an opinion about her relationship with Victor. Some were supportive, most weren't. That's the internet. Arya retrieved her phone, checking for cracks. I knew this would happen. Doesn't make it easier. Want me to come over? No, I need to paint. She spent the next 3 days in her studio, channeling rage and hurt into canvas. The painting that emerged was violent and raw, a figure being torn apart by hands that might have been helping or hurting, impossible to tell which. She called it Scandal. Victor texted daily, asking if she was okay, offering to come over. She kept him at arm's length, needing space to process the backlash on her own terms. On the 4th day, she finally let him visit. He brought Thai food and wine, setting up dinner on her paint-splattered floor like it was a 5-star restaurant. You've been avoiding me, he observed. I've been processing. And? She gestured at the new painting. That's my processing. He studied it, his expression unreadable. It's powerful. It's angry. You're allowed to be angry. People are saying terrible things about me. About us. I know. Doesn't it bother you? Of course it bothers me, but I expected it. He turned to her. Did you not? I expected judgment. I didn't expect people to be so cruel about it. People are always cruel about things they don't understand. He pulled her close. We can end this. If it's too much, I'll understand. Stop offering me exits. If I wanted out, I'd leave. Then what do you want? I want to stop feeling like we're doing something wrong when we're not. I want to walk across campus holding your hand without worrying who's watching. I want... She stopped, frustrated. I want normal, whatever that means. Normal is overrated. Says the man who's never had to be anything but. The words came out sharper than she intended. Victor's jaw tightened. You think my life has been normal? Easy? He stepped back. I built my career from nothing, fought my way out of a world that wanted me dead or in prison, spent 30 years proving I was more than my past, and now I'm risking all of that for you. I didn't ask you to risk anything. You didn't have to ask. That's how this works. They stared at each other, the tension thick enough to choke on. I'm sorry, Arya said finally. That wasn't fair. No, it wasn't. He ran a hand through his hair. But you're right that this is harder for you. I'm faculty. established. You're a student trying to build a reputation. The power imbalance everyone's so worried about, it exists in how this affects us differently. So what do? We survive it. Together. He pulled her back into his arms, and we stop apologizing for being happy. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that love, or whatever this was becoming, could be enough to weather the storm. But 3 days later, everything changed. Arya was in her studio when Maya burst through the door, phone in hand, face pale. "You need to see this." It was a blog post on a popular campus gossip site. Someone had leaked details from the ethics investigation, private testimony, confidential emails between Victor and the committee. And buried in the emails was a message from Victor to Morrison, dated December 15th. "I'm aware of the potential complications regarding Ms. Bennett. I assure you that I will maintain appropriate professional boundaries for the remainder of the semester. However, I wanted to inform you of my intentions to pursue a personal relationship with her once those boundaries no longer apply, should she be interested. I believe transparency in this matter is essential." The post spun it as Victor admitting to planning the relationship while she was still his student, proof that he'd been inappropriate all along. Arya read it 3 times, her hands shaking. "He told them," she whispered, "before anything happened. He told them he was going to pursue me." "Which makes him look calculated as hell," Maya said. "Like he was just waiting for the semester to end so he could make his move." "That's not—" Arya's phone rang. "Victor," she answered. "Did you see it?" "I'm so sorry. I don't know how they got those emails." "You told the ethics committee you planned to pursue me in December? Before we—" "I thought transparency was the right move. I thought if I disclosed my feelings up front, they couldn't accuse me of hiding anything. And now it looks like you were grooming me. I know how it looks, but you know the truth." "Do I?" Anger surged through her, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you had this all planned out. Like I was some kind of project. That's not what happened. Then what did happen, Victor? Because I'm really struggling to understand why you'd tell the university you intended to date me before you'd even asked if I was interested. Silence. Then, because I knew I was falling for you, and I knew that if I didn't disclose it, someone would eventually accuse me of hiding it. I was trying to do the right thing. The right thing would have been asking me first. "You're right, I should have, I'm sorry." She wanted to forgive him, but the anger was too fresh, too raw. "I need time," she said, "to think." "Arya, please, just give me space." She hung up before he could respond. Maya watched her carefully. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." But that was a lie. She knew exactly what she needed to do. The next morning, Arya walked into the campus newspaper office and asked to speak with the editor. "I want to tell my side," she said. "An interview. On the record. About the investigation and the relationship and all of it." The editor, a sharp-eyed senior named Marcus, studied her. "You sure? Once it's out there, you can't take it back." "I'm sure." They sat down that afternoon. Marcus asked hard questions and Arya answered every one honestly. She talked about meeting Victor the night she caught Daniel cheating, about the gallery opening and the slow build of attraction, about Victor's transparency with the ethics committee and why she believed he'd acted with integrity. "People want to make this a story about a professor abusing his power," she said. "But that's not what happened. He pushed me academically because I needed to be pushed. He maintained boundaries when it would have been easy not to. And when we finally did start a relationship, it was between 2 adults making a conscious choice." Some people say you're too young to make that choice, that the age gap creates an inherent power imbalance. Some people need to let women make their own decisions without infantilizing them. Arya leaned forward. "I'm 23. I'm an adult. I've survived betrayal and heartbreak and public scandal. I think I can handle dating someone older than me." "What do you say to people who think you're setting a bad example? That you're normalizing student-teacher relationships?" "I'd say we weren't student and teacher when we got together. Words matter. Context matters. And reducing every relationship to its most problematic interpretation helps no one." The interview ran the next day, front page of the campus paper, and went viral within hours. The response was immediate and polarizing. Half the internet called her brave. The other half called her delusional. Victor showed up at her apartment that night. You didn't have to do that, he said. Yes, I did. People were telling our story without us. I wanted them to hear the truth. Even if it makes things harder? Especially then. He kissed her, fierce and grateful. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. They spent the night talking through everything, his decision to disclose to the ethics committee, her anger at not being consulted, the ways they'd both stumbled trying to navigate an impossible situation. I need you to include me in decisions that affect us both, Arya said, even when you think you're protecting me. I can do that. And I need to work on not assuming the worst when you make mistakes. That seems fair. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was honest. And honest, Arya was learning, was better than perfect. 2 weeks later, Victor's past caught up with him. The men who'd jumped him outside the bar came back, this time with demands. They knew about Arya, knew she mattered to him, and they wanted money, a lot of it, or they'd make her safety a problem. Victor told Arya everything. I need to handle this, he said, his voice tight. And I need you to stay away from me until I do. Absolutely not. Arya, these people are dangerous. Then we'll be dangerous right back. He stared at her. You don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. You're trying to protect me again. And I'm telling you that I don't want protection. I want partnership. This isn't a partnership situation. This is me dealing with mistakes from my past. Then let me help you deal with them. How? She didn't have an answer. But as she looked at him, this brilliant, complicated man who'd somehow become essential to her existence, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She wasn't walking away. Not from this. Not from him. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. Victor's hotel room became a war room. He spread papers across the desk, old contacts, encrypted phone numbers, records from a life he'd tried to bury. Arya sat on the bed, watching him work with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Tell me about them, she said. The men who want money. Marcus and Tony Delgado, brothers. We ran in the same circles 20 years ago. Victor didn't look up from his notes. I got out. They didn't. And they've been bleeding their connections dry ever since. What did you do? Back then? He finally met her eyes. You really want to know? Yes. He sat down heavily, the weight of old sins visible in every line of his body. I collected debts for people who couldn't go through legal channels. Sometimes that meant showing up and having a conversation. Sometimes it meant making sure the person couldn't forget the conversation. You hurt people. I broke bones, ruined credit, burned down a few businesses that refused to pay. His voice was flat, matter-of-fact. I told myself it was survival, that I was doing what I had to do. But the truth is, I was good at it. And for a while, I liked being good at it. Arya processed this, trying to reconcile the violent man he was describing with the person who'd bandaged her knee and pushed her to create honest art. What changed? I met Daniel's mother, Sarah. Something softened in his expression. She was a social worker, spent her days trying to save people from the exact world I was perpetuating. She looked at me and somehow saw something worth saving. You loved her. I did. Still do, in a way. He ran a hand through his hair. She gave me an ultimatum, get out or lose her, so I got out. Used the money I'd saved to invest in legitimate businesses, built a new life. And when she died 5 years ago, I swore I'd never go back to who I was. But Marcus and Tony remember who you were. They're counting on it. They think I'll pay them off to avoid trouble. Keep my new life pristine. His jaw tightened. They don't know I've already lost pristine. The censure, the scandal, that bridge is burned. Which means I have nothing left to lose. Something in his tone made Arya's stomach drop. What are you planning to do? Whatever it takes to keep you safe. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. She moved to him, taking his face in her hands and forcing him to look at her. We're not doing this. The macho protector thing where you go off alone and handle everything. We're partners, remember? So tell me the plan. The real plan. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, the sound rough but genuine. You're terrifying, you know that? I've been told. The plan is to meet with them, convince them that I'm not worth the effort, that bleeding me dry will bring more trouble than it's worth. And if they don't believe you, then I remind them why people used to be afraid of me. The casual way he said it sent chills down her spine. Victor, I won't hurt them, not unless they force my hand, but I need them to believe I would. It's the only language they understand. When's the meeting? Tomorrow night. Warehouse District. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. You don't get to decide that. Arya, these men are dangerous. If something goes wrong, you'll want someone who can call for help. Someone who knows where you are and what happened. She held his gaze. I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you I'm coming. They argued for another hour, but Arya didn't budge. Finally, Victor gave in with the resignation of someone who'd learned not to fight battles he couldn't win. You stay in the car, he said. Engine running. If anything seems wrong, you drive away and call the police. Fine. I'm serious, Arya. At the first sign of trouble, you leave. I heard you. They both knew she was lying. The next day dragged with excruciating slowness. Arya went through the motions of normalcy, attended her studio class, grabbed coffee with Maya, pretended everything was fine. Maya saw through it immediately. What's wrong? She asked over lattes that Arya wasn't drinking. Nothing, just tired. You're a terrible liar. Maya leaned forward. Is it Victor, the scandal? Because I saw the latest round of comments, and they're brutal. I stopped reading them. Good. They're just noise. Maya hesitated. But if you need to talk, I need to not talk. I need to just sit here and drink overpriced coffee and pretend my life is normal. Okay, Maya squeezed her hand. But when you're ready to stop pretending, I'm here. Arya left before she could break down and tell Maya everything. She spent the afternoon in her studio trying to paint, but mostly just staring at blank canvas. The piece she'd started, all dark reds and violent brushstrokes, felt like a premonition. Victor picked her up at 9. He drove his own car this time, a black sedan that probably cost more than Arya's entire education. They didn't talk much on the drive, the tension thick enough to choke on. The warehouse was exactly what Arya had pictured. Abandoned industrial building, broken windows, the kind of place where bad things happened and nobody asked questions. Victor parked at the edge of the lot, leaving the engine running. Stay here, he said, reaching for the door. Victor, he looked back. Be careful. Something flickered in his eyes. Fear, maybe, or determination. Always am. He got out, and Arya watched him walk toward the warehouse, every line of his body radiating controlled violence. This was the man he used to be, she realized. The one who collected debts and broke bones. The one Sarah had saved him from becoming permanently. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Arya's hands gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. Then she heard it, a shout, followed by the unmistakable sound of breaking glass. She was out of the car before she could think, running toward the warehouse. The door was ajar. Inside, dim light filtered through grimy windows, illuminating 3 figures. Victor stood in the center, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. 2 men circled him, one tall and rail-thin, the other shorter but built like a tank. The Delgado brothers. I told you, Victor was saying, his voice steady despite the blood. I don't have the kind of money you're asking for. The university froze my consulting contracts pending the investigation. Then sell something, the thin one, Marcus, said. That fancy hotel room. Your car. Your girlfriend's pretty. I bet she's worth something. Victor moved so fast Arya almost missed it. 1 second he was standing still, the next his fist connected with Marcus's jaw, sending him sprawling. Don't, Victor said quietly. Talk about her. Tony lunged, but Victor sidestepped, using the man's momentum to send him crashing into a pile of crates. It was brutal and efficient, 20 years of rust falling away like it had never existed. Victor, stop! Arya's voice echoed through the warehouse. All 3 men turned. Victor's expression cycled through shock, anger, and fear in rapid succession. I told you to stay in the car. And I told you I wasn't good at following orders. Marcus hauled himself up, spitting blood. Well, the girlfriend. This just got interesting. He pulled a knife. Everything happened in slow motion. Tony grabbed a metal pipe from the ground. Victor positioned himself between Arya and the brothers, his hands up in a placating gesture. This is between us, Victor said. Let her walk away.
She walked in. She's part of it now. Marcus grinned, the expression ugly.
Here's a new deal. Give us $50,000 by next week, or your pretty girlfriend starts receiving pieces of herself in the mail. Arya's blood went cold, but instead of fear, she felt anger, white-hot and clarifying. You're idiots, she said. All three men stared at her. Did you seriously think threatening me would work? That Victor would just pay you and you'd disappear forever? She stepped forward, ignoring Victor's hiss of warning. You'd keep coming back, demanding more, using me as leverage until there was nothing left. So here's my counteroffer. Leave now, and we don't destroy you. Marcus laughed. You think you can destroy us? I think I can call the police and report 2 men threatening us with weapons. I think the security camera Victor installed in his car caught you assaulting him. I think you're both on parole and 1 phone call would put you back in prison. She pulled out her phone, holding it up so they could see the screen showing the car's camera feed. Or you can walk away and never contact us again. Silence. Tony and Marcus exchanged glances. You're bluffing, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. Try me. Victor moved beside her, his presence solid and unwavering. She's not bluffing, and neither am I when I say that if you ever threaten her again, I'll forget every promise I made to Sarah about leaving that life behind. Do you understand? The brothers understood. Arya could see it in the way they shifted, the calculations happening behind their eyes. Finally, Marcus spat on the ground. This isn't over. Yes, Victor said quietly. It is. They left, and Arya's legs almost gave out from the adrenaline crash. Victor caught her, holding her up. That was incredibly stupid, he said. That was incredibly brave. Stupid and brave aren't mutually exclusive. He cupped her face, his hands shaking. You could have been killed. So could you. That's why I came in. Arya, psst. No. You don't get to be mad at me for caring whether you live or die. She pressed her forehead to his. We're in this together. That means I don't abandon you when things get dangerous. There really was a camera in the car? No, I was completely bluffing. He laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. You're going to give me a heart attack. Good. Keeps you on your toes. They drove back to his hotel in silence, both processing what had just happened. In his room, Arya cleaned the cut above his eye while he sat still, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. What? She asked finally. I've spent my whole life trying to protect people by keeping them at a distance. First from the violence I was capable of, then from the consequences of my past. His hand found hers. You won't let me keep you at a distance. No, I won't. It terrifies me. Good. I'm terrified too. He pulled her into his lap, holding her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. They stayed like that for a long time, just breathing together, letting the fear drain away. I need to tell you something, Victor said finally. The university offered me a deal. They'll remove the censure from my record if I resign at the end of the year. Arya pulled back to look at him. Are you going to take it? I don't know. Teaching was supposed to be my redemption, proof I could do something meaningful with my second chance. He traced her jawline. But maybe my redemption isn't in teaching. Maybe it's in building something new. With you. What would that look like? I've been thinking about starting a foundation for kids trying to escape situations like I was in. Give them resources, mentorship, a way out that doesn't involve violence. That's beautiful. It would mean leaving academia, starting over, again. You're good at starting over. Am I? He smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. I thought I'd figured out who I was supposed to be. And then you walked into my life and reminded me that becoming is a process, not a destination. Is that a bad thing? No. It's terrifying and inconvenient and probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. She kissed him, slow and deep, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. When they broke apart, she knew what she had to do. I want to help, she said, with the foundation. I could design the brand, create materials, use my art to reach kids who need to hear that they can be more than their circumstances. You have your own career to build. I can do both. Unless you don't want, I want. He cut her off with another kiss. I want everything with you. I'm just trying to make sure you know what you're signing up for. I know exactly what I'm signing up for. Messy, complicated, probably inadvisable you. She grinned. And I'm choosing it anyway. The next few months were chaos. Victor resigned from the university, issuing a statement about pursuing other opportunities. The gossip mill had a field day, but Arya had stopped reading the comments. She focused instead on her senior thesis, a series of paintings about transformation, violence, and redemption that her advisor called brutally honest. She graduated in May with honors. Her thesis showed drawing collectors and critics who praised her raw emotional honesty. Daniel showed up, attempting a conversation that Arya shut down in 3 sentences. Elena sent flowers with a card that Arya actually read this time. I'm proud of you. You're exactly who you were always supposed to be. E. Arya kept the card. Victor's foundation launched in June, focused on providing resources for at-risk youth. Arya designed everything: the logo, the website, the promotional materials. They worked side by side, building something that felt like redemption and hope in equal measure. Maya got a job at a gallery in New York and begged Arya to come with her. Arya declined. You're staying for him, Maya observed over their goodbye dinner. I'm staying for me. Victor's just a really good bonus. You're happy. I am. Then I'm happy for you, even if I still think the age gap is weird. It is weird, but it's our weird. Maya hugged her tight. Don't be a stranger, okay? And if he ever hurts you, I know where to hide a body. Noted. On a humid night in July, Victor took Arya to the mansion where they'd first met. It had been sold months ago, the new owners turning it into a boutique hotel. Victor had rented the study, his study, for the evening. Why are we here? Arya asked as they climbed the familiar stairs. Because this is where it started, where you fell apart, and I started falling. The study looked different with hotel furniture, but the bones were the same. Arya could almost see herself on the floor, mascara-streaked and heartbroken, meeting the eyes of a stranger who would become everything. Victor pulled a small box from his pocket. Arya's heart stopped. Before you panic, he said quickly, I'm not asking you to marry me, not yet. We're too new for that, and I'm not an idiot. Then what? I'm asking you to build a life with me. Intentionally, messily, without apologizing for who we are or what we want. He opened the box, revealing a simple silver ring. This is a promise that I see you, all of you, the anger and the talent and the recklessness, and I choose it every day. Arya's eyes filled with tears. That's basically a proposal. It's a pre-proposal, a declaration of intent. You're such a lawyer. Is that a yes? She took the ring, sliding it onto her right hand. It's an enthusiastic yes. He kissed her against the desk where he'd once sat grading papers, where he'd first realized she was more than just another student. The kiss tasted like new beginnings and old ghosts laid to rest. I love you, she said against his mouth. In case that wasn't clear, I love you too, messily and completely and probably too much. There's no such thing as too much. Give it time. You'll get sick of me. Doubtful. They stayed in that study for hours, talking about the future they were building. The foundation expanding, Arya's art career, maybe a house outside the city, definitely a dog. Kids were a maybe, something to revisit when they'd been together longer than a few months. What about your family? Victor asked. Your parents. Elena. What about them? Don't you want to reconcile? Make peace? Arya considered it. Maybe eventually. But they're not my priority right now. You are. We are. The life we're building. That's very healthy and mature of you. Don't get used to it. I'm planning to be petty and immature about many things. I'm counting on it. 2 years later, they did get married. Small ceremony, just Maya and a handful of close friends. Elena showed up uninvited, and Arya surprised herself by letting her stay. They didn't hug, didn't cry, but they talked for 10 minutes about art and therapy and learning to be better people. It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly, but it was something. Daniel sent a gift, expensive and impersonal, that Victor returned with a note that said simply, no. The foundation grew, helping hundreds of kids find paths out of violence and into opportunity. Arya's paintings sold in galleries across the country, each one a raw examination of transformation and survival. Critics called her fearless, Maya called her successful, Victor called her home. On their third anniversary, standing in the Foundation's new headquarters, surrounded by artwork created by the kids they'd helped, Victor actually proposed. Down on one knee, ring in hand, nervous in a way Arya had never seen him. I know I already gave you a ring, and we're already married, but I wanted to ask properly. Will you keep choosing this, keep choosing us, even when it's hard? Especially when it's hard. She pulled him up, kissing him in front of a room full of people who'd learned that second chances were real. Always yes. Their life wasn't perfect. They fought about money and time and whose turn it was to handle the Foundation's crisis of the week. Victor's past occasionally resurfaced in ugly ways. Arya's family remained complicated. The age gap still raised eyebrows at dinner parties. But they chose each other. Every single day. Through scandal and success, judgment and joy, the slow work of building something that mattered. 5 years after that first night in the study, Arya stood in a gallery showing her latest series, paintings about love as transformation, about violence giving way to creation, about two broken people choosing to heal together. Victor stood beside her, their daughter asleep against his shoulder. She was 2, dark-haired and stubborn, already showing signs of her mother's artistic temperament and her father's intensity. Do you ever regret it? Arya asked, watching collectors examine her work. Everything we went through to get here? Which part? The scandal? The investigation? Your sister? All of it. He adjusted their daughter's weight, pressing a kiss to her hair. Every hard thing led us here, to this moment, this life, so no, I don't regret any of it. Not even the censure. Not even that. It forced me to figure out what mattered, and what mattered was you. That's disgustingly romantic. You love it. She did. She loved all of it. The mess and the beauty, the scars and the healing, the way they'd taken broken pieces and built something whole. A young woman approached, maybe 19, with the same look Arya used to have, hungry and uncertain and desperate to be seen. Your paintings, the girl said. They're incredible. How did you learn to be so honest? Arya glanced at Victor, at their daughter, at the life they'd carved from chaos. I stopped being afraid of what honesty would cost me, she said, and I started caring more about what hiding would. The girl nodded, something shifting in her expression. Arya recognized that shift, the moment when you realized you could be more than your circumstances demanded. As the girl walked away, Arya leaned into Victor, feeling his free arm come around her. Think she'll make it? Victor asked. If she wants it badly enough. Arya watched the girl study another painting. We did. We had each other. Then maybe she'll find her person too, someone who sees her and doesn't flinch. Their daughter stirred, mumbling something incomprehensible. Victor soothed her with practiced ease, and Arya marveled at how this man, this complicated, damaged, brilliant man, had become the center of her world. It hadn't been easy, it hadn't been clean, but it had been real. And real, Arya had learned, was always better than perfect. The gallery buzzed around them, people examining her work, discussing technique and meaning and price. But Arya barely noticed. She was too busy living in this moment, standing beside the man who'd challenged her to stop playing it safe, holding the result of that choice in his arms. Ready to go home? Victor asked. Arya looked around one more time, at her paintings, at her success, at the proof that choosing honestly over easily had been worth it. Yeah, she said, taking his hand. Let's go home. They walked out into the night, a family built from scandal and choice, carrying with them the knowledge that love wasn't about being perfect. It was about being brave enough to be broken together, and strong enough to keep choosing each other anyway. The city lights glittered around them, and Arya thought about that girl at the party 3 years ago, devastated and heartbroken, stumbling into a study where a stranger would change everything. She'd thank that girl if she could, for being reckless, for refusing to play it safe, for walking through the wrong door at exactly the right time, because sometimes the worst nights lead to the best lives. And sometimes love looks nothing like you expected, messier, harder, more complicated than the fairy tales promised. But when you find someone who sees all of you and chooses you anyway, who pushes you to be better while loving you exactly as you are, who builds with you instead of for you, That's when you realize that perfect was never the goal. Real was. And real, in the end, was everything.